Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us today. You know, this is a special time to be at NISC, and when we started the planning process for our 50th celebration last year, and we picked the February 2018 date as the official kickoff of the 50th, I think a lot of us thought that that seemed like it was a long ways away. And we knew that there was a lot of things that we had to do, logistics, planning, to make this 50th a success. And so while we plan to formally kick off the 50th celebration with our membership at the annual meeting in February, we're kind of informally kicking it off here today with our employees with the charitable giving. And for those of you who were on our all-employee call yesterday, you heard CEO Vern Dosh talk about the charitable component to this 50th. Now, we are all so fortunate to be working in two fantastic industries, the telecommunications and the rural electric utility industry, with some pretty amazing members. And with the 50th, we want to use this as an opportunity not just to tell our story, and to tell our members' stories, but also use it as kind of a vehicle to give back to the organizations that have given so much to us. And so Vern talked about the 50 at 50 campaign. And we appreciate you coming out and showing some interest and hopefully pledging your support towards this effort. So the two foundations that we have recognized to be recipients of our charitable giving are representative of the two industries that we work in. The first being NRECA International, the second being NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association's Foundation for Rural Service. And we are so fortunate today to have with us a guest speaker that works for NRECA International, has been all around the world helping form rural electric co-ops in third world countries. Now, you take a look at our own United States, arguably the effort to electrify this country from coast to coast 80 years ago has profound impacts, not just in connecting the countryside and connecting this great country, but you think about the economic impact and the quality of life improvements that's meant in places like North Dakota, Missouri, and every corner of our great country. NRECA's International's mission is to bring that same level of service to countries that don't have electrification or don't have reliable, affordable electricity in parts that need it the most, with the hopes of bringing that same type of economic and cultural vitality to those regions that we take for granted here today. And so our guest speaker this afternoon is Ingrid Hunsicker. Ingrid's been with NRECA for 20 years, has worked all over the country to help form these co-ops. NRECA International has been in existence themselves just over 50 years and has successfully started 250 rural electric cooperatives all across this great planet. So with that, I'd like to help give a warm NISC introduction to Ingrid Hunsicker from NRECA International. Ingrid? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And more than anything, thank you for just considering the 50 for 50 campaign. We're honored to be part of it, and hopefully we can continue this momentum. So I wanted to talk today about who we are and what we do, but more than that, because you'll be able to read a lot of the stories and the projects that we do worldwide. Jennifer from Missouri in marketing has a lot of links that I think she's going to be sharing with you throughout the coming weeks. I want to give you my personal perspective and kind of a little bit of what I've seen, how it's become personal to me, and to the linemen and volunteers that I've seen when we've gone overseas. And I would love it, you know, as we go, if anybody has a question, please feel free to jump in and ask. You know, I think it makes it a lot more fun and interesting to go that way. But just a little introduction, though. I do want to talk about who we are and what we do. We were originally created in 1962. It was the first contract signed between the U.S. Agency for International Development and NRECA, and that's how they formed NRECA International. And I think it's a really cool story of how they formed this and why. President John F. Kennedy, when he was still a senator, actually started looking into NRECA, and he it was interesting to him, the co-op model, the big movement that had started in the US 30 years before his presidency, and he saw how these co-ops were being formed. They were a democratic business model, and how they were making America grow from within. And all of this growth from the rural areas, and it was really helping build up the country. And so that was really interesting to him. So when he became president and USAID was formed, he wanted a contract to be able to export the co-op model. Now, there was a little bit of selfish interest there for the United States in all of this, of course, because this was during the height of communism and the Cold War going on. Russia had Cuba, and they were they had designs on Nicaragua back then. It still hadn't fallen to the Sandinistas. And so what really happened was the United States wanted to introduce the rural electric cooperative model into Nicaragua because they were hoping that with a democratic business model, and if people had hope, it wouldn't fall to the communists. So that's where we really got our first international contract. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. It didn't go so well for Nicaragua. They did fall to the Sandinistas, but it did give us our entry into international work. And we've been working in 43 countries since then, and we have helped over 120 million cooperatives. No, I'm sorry, 120 million people in more than 200 cooperatives gain access to electricity that is more affordable and that is more reliable for them. To give you a couple of examples of the work that we've been doing throughout the years, Bangladesh. I don't know how many of you remember hearing or knew about, I think it was in the 70s, the Beatles guy, George Harrison. I always get them confused. George Harrison put together a concert across the United States because he wanted to raise money to be able to feed the people of Bangladesh. There was huge famine going on. Well, in 2000, President Bush II, he declared Bangladesh the rice pot of Asia. They were now growing so much rice and being able to feed their people, and it was all due because of electricity. They went from famine to having enough to be able to export and help their fellows. And the reason of that was, it was actually twofold. First one was, there was a new strain of rice, I think it was created in the Philippines, and it had a much quicker harvest time. But the second thing was the introduction of electricity in Bangladesh, and it helped with irrigation. So now instead of having barely 1 or 2 crops a year, they were actually growing and expanding 3 crops a year in Bangladesh. So that expansion of electricity into their country has really, they've got more than 72 cooperatives now, and they keep growing. We also have Bolivia. We've been working with them since the 70s. When we started with them, it was a small rural town called Santa Cruz. They've got these really cool black and white photos in their main office. I've been there a couple of times now. And it's rural America back in the 20s and 30s. But for them, in 50 years, with the help of the cooperative, they have grown tremendously, and they're now the economic center for the entire country of Bolivia. They are the largest cooperative in the entire world. They have over 600,000 members, and they have a growth rate of 35,000 members a year. You ask any of our co-op members around here what that means, and they would be horrified if they would have to go through that. First of all, I don't think you have the population in the rural areas here, but they've got an incredible growth rate. And there's so much more because they actually provide a lot of social services to their community. They've really gotten into the whole co-op spirit. And they were telling me the story, they didn't even have a fire department. So the local government couldn't fund one, so the cooperative stepped up, and they've created the fire department with ambulances and fire trucks to be able to help their community. And what's incredible about CRE, the cooperative in Bolivia, is back when they first started, it was in partnership with one of the our cooperatives in South Carolina, in Lenore, South Carolina. Blue Ridge, I'm sorry, name escaped me for a second. Anyway, they were the ones that's first partnered with them. The CEO started going down to help them create their plan and just learn what an electric cooperative was about. A little more recently, we've been working in Haiti, and you've got to think, poor Haiti, the country. First of all, it's one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. I believe it actually is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. They've been pummeled the last couple of years. 2010, we had an earthquake that devastated Port-au-Prince, and recently we had Hurricane Matthew in the southern part of the island. And what's really tragic, both of them obviously were tragic, natural cases in each case. With the hurricane, we had just completed building in 3 villages a distribution system for rural electrification. We had been taking volunteer linemen from all across the United States for several years now. We had a grant from U.S. Agency of International Development funding the materials and the construction. We had, I believe, inaugurated 3 months beforehand the project before Hurricane Matthew came by, and it's devastated the country. But we're committed. We're committed to going back to the region, and as soon as we're able, we're still working with the United Nations and a couple of other funds. And hopefully, we're hoping that once we're able to get some of that funding back and be able to get the logistics worked out, because you can't even access the area very easily, we'll be able to go back and help these 3 villages and rebuild the system that we had worked in. We had built, it was for 3 villages, we had the distribution system and the generation. They don't have natural resources to be able for the generation, so we had a solar diesel generator, which is a little bit of a new technology, I believe, for what we've been doing overseas, and what they do have a lot of was sun. But again, the solar panels and the solar farm, it got devastated. So we're hoping to go back there, because on top of it was the first time these 3 villages had electricity, it was the first time we were able to bring in a rural electric cooperative into Haiti. They had not had that before. So there's a lot of work, obviously, going on. Our big push lately is in Africa. We're working there in Ghana, in Liberia, Ethiopia, Nigeria. There's a lot of really good projects. Those are much larger scale, and we're looking for funding between World Bank, USAID. We're hoping also we're doing some fundraising to be able to go into smaller villages to be able to help them gain electricity. And there's a lot of different stories like that that I could tell you if I had more time. Do you have all afternoon? Do you think you'd be able to stay here with me? We can get more ice cream if you need it, right? But anyway, so a lot of those good stories, and there's a lot of information that you'll be able to find in the links, as I said, that Jennifer will send out. What I really want to talk to you about now, this is my favorite part, is those stories that I've been there to witness. And I hope that they'll help make a connection for you, because they still really affect me. And I've been going overseas now for several years, and I've been at the villages when we turn on the lights for the first time. And every time, it's like the first time, and it still gets you. Because you're looking at it, and you're looking at the people, and they've never had electricity in their lives before. And some of these people live in the most remote areas, and they are grateful for anything. And you're thinking, it's one light bulb. How excited can they be about one light bulb? Let me tell you how excited they are about one light bulb. It's not just the one light bulb. It's everything that comes behind it. It's like our forefathers. One light bulb to them at the farm, and they had the one light bulb, the radio, and maybe an ice box, which we now know as a refrigerator. They were excited because of the possibilities that came with it. So it's the same excitement that you see with them that I really want to share. There's a couple of stories. One of them was in Guatemala. So we've been working since 2012 with a new project model. It's a little different than our big projects and contracts, and we bring in all the experts and, for multi-years and whatnot. We had cooperatives in Indiana. They actually were, it was their 50th anniversary or 75th anniversary. can't remember right now, actually. Anyway, it was one of their big anniversaries, and they wanted to do something like you guys wanted to do. You know, they wanted to honor, for your anniversary, you're doing the 50 on 50, and you're going to be benefiting 2 foundations. Well, they wanted to do something similar, so they called us up and they said, hey, listen, you know, it's our 50th anniversary, and what we want to do is go with a crew overseas and do some sort of project. So we brainstormed a little bit, and there was this area in Guatemala bordering Mexico, and there was about a dozen villages there, and they didn't have electricity, and there was no funding. Nobody, local government or foreign government or multilateral banks, nobody was looking to be able to fund any of the projects. So we said, well, if we can get the resources, the materials, and you put up the linemen as well, we can go in, small projects, about 60 people, maybe 60 homes, and you can go in, and there was generation available. You can go in and build up the lines and electrify this village. What do you think? They're like, yeah, sounds great. So we did that, and then Arkansas was able to go during their inauguration. It was awesome, and it really just grew from there, and we've got about a dozen states now involved. But anyway, so that first project, we went in and we electrified them. And I had a chance last year to go back to that first village. All 12 of those, by the way, 12 of those villages in that region, it's hard to get there. And the roads, the first time I went, one of our CEOs that was with us, he's riding in the back seat of the car, and he was like, I just told my wife I loved her, and I reminded her where the insurance papers were. I am not lying. I mean, it was a scary road. Now it's like, whatever, I'm going back. But anyway, so it's very remote, very hard to get to. But the people need access. They wanted a better life. Well, we went back last year to the first villages that they had electrified. So it's been 4 years since they've had electricity. And a lot of the homes, different degrees of what they've had, appliances and whatnot, and they grow coffee there. It's high altitude coffee, so it's very good quality. And we went to one of the homes, and I was talking to the matriarch. It's 17 people living in this house, the grandmother, her 3 kids, and their families. And they have one big structure, which is where the kitchen, the living room, if you will, area for all of them to hang out, and then the grandparents' room. And then there's a couple little cabins, if you will, for the other families. But they all eat together. And she was telling me, you know, before they had electricity, it took them 5 hours a day to mill the corn by hand. They had this little mill, and, you know, the little girls, the granddaughters, had to do it every day. Every single day, they had to do their 5 hours of corn, because that's how much corn they needed, because they're subsistence living. So they're eating corn and beans mainly. Some vegetables that they grew. After they had the corn, they would make their tortillas, cornmeal, make their tortillas every day just for what they were eating that day. And this goes on and on and on and on every day. And this is separate from, well, now the little girls have to go and walk a couple kilometers or a mile or so to the river with the dirty clothes to go wash it. Now they have to trudge back. They have to go gather some, firewood to cook with every night. They have to buy batteries and kerosene every month to be able to just light up the home. Well, since they had electricity, and the grandmother had to show me the electric corn mill that they had, and she said the same quantity of corn that they had to mill every day, and it used to take them 5 hours, takes them 15 minutes now. They also had a washing machine. She very proudly showed me her washing machine. And it's like, she's like, you can put clothes in, and look, it spins. It makes the clothes clean. So the little girls don't have to mill corn every day. They don't have to make tortillas. Oh, because she showed me the refrigerator. And what they'll do is once or twice a week, they'll make all of the tortillas. They had stacks of them in the freezer. And then for every meal, they just grabbed what they needed, put them in the microwave to heat them up, and that was their meal. That was part of their meal. You know what those little girls are doing? They're going to school. They're going to graduate, well, hopefully at least to learn to read. Because at most, little girls went to school till 3rd grade. Little boys sometimes till 6th grade if they were able to go further. Those little girls especially are changing their lives because they now can go to school. The dad was showing us, now he's got all of this coffee, and one of his neighbors, this is the other guy that we went to visit, it was awesome, he only had a corn mill and one light bulb in his house. And we're talking to him, and kind of like, well, it's been 4 years. And he's like, oh, no. All of my money is going into building this coffee dryer. So he was building these big, huge pools. One, you had to get to a ladder, so it was higher up, and then it would drain down into another pool, a concrete pools. I don't know. He had a method for being able to wash the coffee. You had to wash the coffee. And then once it was washed, it came out to these flat surfaces. And then he was building a room in where he was going to buy a heater so that he could dry his coffee. Because right now they're just selling it grain to the middlemen, and they're getting pennies on the dollar for the pounds of coffee. And the middleman is really getting a lot more of the money because he's taking it to the dryers and he's getting it roasted and he's getting it packaged up to sell. Well, if they didn't have the coffee to be able to dry it, if there were not enough days that was hot enough, if the sun was out, the coffee could start growing mold. So they didn't have how to dry the coffee. So that's what he's doing. He's like, I've only got one light bulb and I've only got my corn mill. But by goodness, I'm going to have a coffee dryer. And it's going to be the only one in that village, and actually in that region. So guess what? All the other ones are going to come and get their coffee dried there until they're able to build their own. And it's really cool because they're also a coffee co-op. So these are the types of stories that you go out and you see people, and it's really making a difference to them. Because as I said earlier, they're the villages that nobody was looking to electrify. There was no funding. It wasn't like, well, if Indiana didn't go, if Arkansas or Michigan or Ohio or any of the other co-ops that are working with us right now, it's not like, well, if they don't go, it doesn't matter because they'll get done. Somebody's doing them anyway. Nope, nobody was doing them. And that's the difference that cooperatives are making. At one of the inaugurations, there was a really old grandmother. Maybe she might have not been that old, but she looked like she had led a very hard life. And you could see it etched in her. I took a photo of her, and I'm proud. It's one of the, if we were able to show it, it really cuts me. And she said to me, I speak fluent Spanish, so I was very fortunate to be able to talk with her. And she said to me, I have lived my entire life without electricity, but thanks to you, my grandchildren will always have lights. We are changing their lives for generations to come. It's not just about that light bulb. It's about everything that can come and all of the possibilities behind that one light bulb. It's about health. They don't have to buy candles anymore. They don't have to go and get firewood. Or their kitchens are not going to smoke up. That mom that lived with the grandmother that I was talking to you about, she had three little ones. One of them was a 6-week-old baby. And she was telling me that every couple of weeks she would normally have to go down 2 hours to the health center because they didn't have one close by because the kids were getting really sick. Their lungs, and it was like asthma and they couldn't breathe. She said, ever since we've had electricity and we don't light up the candles and we don't have the smoky kitchen, they're not getting sick anymore, at least not with that. She said, we have a refrigerator now, so instead of when they go to market day once a week and they only eat meat once a week because you don't have anywhere to store it, she's like, maybe they don't have meat every day, but they're having a more varied diet. They're being able to eat protein a couple of times a week instead. We're really changing lives there. In Bolivia, we went this last year. No, actually, it was earlier this year. And it was one of the things that I love about the villages in Bolivia is, so these countries are Latin, of course, and the culture is very macho. It's all, the men are in charge. And you can see it when you go to the villages, especially in Guatemala. It's like all the women are to one side, and they're very quiet and respectful, and all of the men are together, and they're the ones that are leading the meetings and talking to us. And in Bolivia, I really loved to see that a lot of these villages, it was women empowered, and it was women leaders at the villages. So I thought that was really cool. But besides that, they've got all of these ideas of what they want to do when they have electricity. And sometimes they already are working on it. I went to a fish farm, and they had all these different types of, all these pools, and the fish, I think it's called pecu, and it was like, and this first fish, that's when they're little fishies, and then once they reach a certain, age, and they catch them all from there and put them in the next pool, and they keep going like that. And they have no electricity, or they have a generator for a couple of hours a day. And they were like, so we're gonna get lights now? Because we wanna be able to do this, and we can refrigerate the fish, and we're gonna be able to sell it more often. So they've got the concept, what they wanna do with the electricity. It's just a matter of being able to give them a chance and be able to give them the hope. And that's what we're really doing, and the real difference we're making to these smaller communities. It's not just the huge, big, multi-million-dollar projects, and sometimes we can be like, well, what difference can I make there? Well, there's a huge difference that you can make in all of these villages. And let me just tell you the last thing. The best part of this all is watching our linemen when they go down and build the projects. And if you've ever been around linemen and you've seen them, and they're these big, tall, tough guys, it's like chewing. I'm tough, I'm big, nothing's gonna get to me. And they go to the projects, and when they say goodbye, they're kind of like, nothing's happening here, and they really got involved, and it's personal for them, and they leave there, and it's amazing to see that before they go, you talk to them, and they know the difference that they are going to go and make in the lives of the people, and they talk about that, and how they are going to help, and how it's going to change the lives of the people they're helping. And they come back, and they're talking about what a difference it made to them, and the impact it made to their lives to see and know that they helped that 90-year-old guy in Bolivia. He is a grandfather. His children moved away to the big city, left him all by himself. He lives with no electricity. And for the inauguration, he came to the inauguration ceremony, and he was dressed up. He had his one good suit on, and he had a hat, and he was sitting front row, and with tears in his eyes, he was so excited for that. You ask any of those linemen, they were so excited to be able to, they were honored to be part of that inauguration of that project. And they get to know the people, and they get to know the kids. And when they later watch, sometimes I've seen them, if we have a video of their project, and they're sitting down and watching them, and they just, it's emotional. It gets very emotional for them. It gives them passion. It renews their purpose. They come back, and they're changed because they said, they say it's such a huge honor to be able to go and make such a difference in people's lives. And they come back with a new sense of purpose, and they know what that change can do for others. So I just, it's really meant a lot for me to be able to be a part of these projects. See all of the hard work that goes into the building of the projects. The linemen, the last thing I'll say about them, they sure know how to work, and they work hard. They've never not come home without completing the job. And they sometimes get there, and the challenges are huge. And it's like there's a mountain up there, and the pole has to go way up there, and they've got to climb that ridge. But you know what? They're going to get it done. They are amazing. They represent our cooperatives, and they represent America in the best way possible. And to me, it's been an honor to be working alongside them and to know that just a little bit, I had a little bit of that, of help getting them there, and knowing that we made a difference in the lives of others. So I can continue talking, but I don't want to overextend my stay here. But I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. There's a lot of There's a short one-page information on the table over there. As I said, I know Jennifer is going to have a lot of information. There's a lot of really good videos that we've sent her links. If you don't want to wait for her to send you the links, if you go to YouTube and search under NRECA International, there's a whole host of 5-minute, 3-minute videos that you'll be able to see stories of individuals, Bolivia, in Africa, and Guatemala. I hope you enjoy them. I hope that you get a chance to be able to look at them. And I know that you've also got another form here for your contribution. And there's another, I did not pick one up, I'm remiss, but I do want to also mention, the Foundation for NRTC, and they've got their information, there's there. It's all very worthy work, and hopefully, we can do something even grander together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ingrid. That was excellent. Can you imagine the sensation of the experience of turning the lights on for the first time? A lot of us in this room are probably the first generation that grew up without that experience of having no electricity, but I'm sure, like me, you've all heard stories from your parents and your grandparents what it was like when that light bulb was turned on for the first time. And so, as Ingrid so well articulated, the profound impacts that NRECA International is having all over the globe, and not just spreading the cooperative movement, but really improving the quality of life in parts of the world that need it the most. It's just incredible work. So, as Ingrid also demonstrated, we do have sign-up forms here in the table. We're also going to have a series of drop boxes around the different campuses where you can drop your donation. Here in Mandan, you can return the sheet to Denise in corporate services. But we do encourage you to consider giving. It's all certainly confidential and certainly no expectations, but it is an opportunity for us to give back in the spirit of our 50th anniversary. So with that, let's give another round of applause for Ingrid, and thank you for being our special guest. Take good care, everybody. Thanks.